heart-wrenching, sick to my stomach.
Community members want answers following the death of a 12-year-old West Haven boy last week.
The darkness tonight as a heartbroken community asks questions like why and how.
I just feel like we have failed him.
Clearly there has been a long pattern of abuse.
It honestly hurts because we are our kids' a safe place. They should come to us and talk to us and feel safe and tell us what's going on, and he did not have that.
Near the West Haven home where authorities say a 12-year-old boy died from neglect and abuse. They're not shocked by the accusations against this family.
No, authorities arrested the young victim's dad, the stepmom, and a brother in the past 24 hours, each now facing child abuse homicide charges.
Ariel Harrison live tonight from West Haven. Ariel?
Yeah, these documents in my hand, the boy's brother, stepmom, and father are accused of severe child abuse and neglect that authorities say led to the 12-year-old's death. They also detail attempts to conceal that abuse. Neighbors I spoke with nearby say while the allegations and accusations are horrific, they are sadly not shocking.
I wish we would have called more.
A neighbor in the West Haven community who wanted to stay off camera says he personally reported the family to police multiple times.
I wish I could say it was shocking, but it's not.
He says for the past 10 years, the parents Shane Peterson and Nicole Scott have been aggressive and hostile to his wife and kids.
3 or 4 cameras pointed right in my backyard and bathroom windows.
Why?
Great question.
In each of the suspects' arrest documents, investigators noted cameras around the victim's home, along with deleted cell phone video files of the child in his room. A search warrant of the parents' and brother's phones revealed conversations about locking the child's door, whether he'd been fed that day, and even hitting or beating the child.
Clearly there has been a long pattern of abuse.
Kristen Floyd, a child advocate and licensed clinical mental health worker, read over the arrest documents of the case. I asked her to weigh in.
What to you was the most egregious?
I mean, clearly, if the age of the child and the fact that he was being fed just minimal amounts.
Floyd also noted the orchestration of the abuse spelled out in arrest documents among the family members.
That they had it on camera and they were text messaging, that back and forth. And so, they knew what they were doing.
After the 21-year-old brother was arrested today, authorities issued a press release and directed my questions about the case to the county attorney, Christopher Allred. I called and requested to speak with him, but never heard back. I sent an email asking if DCFS was made aware of the boy before he died last week, as neighbors claim. Information Floyd says will be key moving forward.
Were they going into the home? Were they really doing a complete investigation? Those are the questions I would want answered.
Now coming back out here live, you can see this memorial that's grown for the boy set up in front of the home. It has only grown since news of this case and the arrests have gained traction. The arrest documents do detail disturbing allegations I didn't get to in this report. Shane Peterson's father, the boy's father that was arrested, but the grandfather I spoke with today in person wouldn't go on camera, but did tell me the family is working through their attorneys. Reporting live in West Haven, Ariel Harrison, KUTV 2 News.
The fence behind me has become a makeshift memorial with balloons, ribbons, stuffed animals, and more. I talked to a woman whose kids went to school with Gavin about why she came and why they wanted to tie some of those ribbons.
Underneath the blue sky, blue ribbons tied to the fence for a 12-year-old boy, now dead because of alleged neglect from his caretakers. They're blue for a reason.
I was planning on blue for abuse awareness, and we found out that it was also Gavin's favorite color.
Brindy Lipham's kids went to school with Gavin, but she says he had been homeschooled for some time. Once they heard what happened, they wanted to pay their respects.
It's hard for my littles to really understand what's going on. They are heartbroken.
Balloons and stuffed animals make the fence a pretty sight from the road, but inside those walls lies a different story. According to probable cause documents, Gavin's room was carpetless and didn't have bedding or blankets. The documents say screenshots showed him wearing only a heavy saturated diaper and curling up on the floor with sores on his back.
For you as a mother, and when you read something like that, just kind of neglect like that and abuse like that, what goes through your mind?
It makes me angry. It honestly hurts because we are our kids' a safe place. They should come to us and talk to us and feel safe and tell us what's what's going on, and he did not have that.
Community members want to know if school employees did their part by filing reports with DCFS, why this boy fell through the cracks and was allowed to remain in that home. Questions I attempted to get answers to today.
Absolutely heart-wrenching, sick to my stomach.
As the memorial for 12-year-old Gavin grows outside his West Haven home, emotions do too.
How could this go on and no one know? How could it have been reported and heads aren't rolling?
Today, a community member who asked we conceal their identity spoke with us about news of the reports of multiple complaints filed.
What did you know about the complaints?
I knew one had been filed. I have spoken with that person since, and it's heartbreaking. That person is absolutely distraught over it because that person done everything they could.
This morning, I reached out to DCFS to ask if they would confirm the district's statement that multiple reports concerning the boy's safety were filed. Their response cited privacy laws, saying, quote, DCFS legally cannot provide any information regarding these questions or claims. In a separate statement, the department said the death, quote, devastates us, calling it tragic, and said the agency, quote, works with children and families during some of their most vulnerable moments.
Do you think there's blame?
I do. They have employees that work with children, like bus drivers, lunch ladies, school teachers, principals. If they are mandated by law to report this and to document it, at some point, the accusations should have been checked on.
There's so many Gavins out there. Again, what do we take away from this?
Speak out, speak up, do something, act. Don't sit back and watch, act.
Now, coming back out here live, we were told today by the school district that the boy was a student in the district up until just last year when his family opted to homeschool him. I was told by a community member today a viewing is being held for Gavin tonight. Well, we know multiple reports were filed by school employees to DCFS before Gavin's death. But an expert I spoke with tonight explained filing a report here with this department doesn't automatically just trigger an investigation, and it's something she feels could be confusing, especially since it could take a lot of courage to make that call in the first place.
How did he slip through the cracks? How did someone not know this if it was reported?
People living in West Haven say they ache for answers, not knowing what was done, if anything, to help 12-year-old Gavin Peterson.
There should have been physical eyes on that kid. Weekly, monthly, something.
We don't know what DCFS did. That's a hard part to this.
Yeah, I think that there's this really gray line on getting information.
Kristen Floyd is a licensed mental health counselor in the state. Having filed reports with the department throughout her career, she says it's rare to know what comes of them.
You know, I've made a report and then seen that family 2 or 3 weeks later, just in their normal, natural environment, and nothing has changed.
Reading over Gavin's case, she and others question how teams checked on the boy following the reports, especially after he was pulled from school. A task she admits isn't as simple as some might think.
I mean, DCFS can't just barge into their home by any means. Sometimes they'll make appointments with the families to come and meet with them, and then the families don't show up. Or even worse, the family lets DCFS in and they show them, you know, maybe a false sense of security for the child.
Floyd says while she understands privacy laws, Gavin's case highlights an area where she says our policies might be too one-sided.
I think we'll ever get answers as to why it got to this point.
You know, unfortunately, all these investigations are confidential.
As a mental health counselor, Floyd is required by the state to report any abuse concerns.
If I'm accountable as a mandatory reporter, what are the consequences on the other side if things go wrong? But we can't ignore that this case happened and that something went wrong with this case, and therefore policies or procedures need to be investigated.
Right now, a candlelight vigil honoring a 12-year-old boy who heartbroken community members say was failed by everyone.
Last fall, the Weber School District said Gavin Peterson's stepmother pulled him out of school to be homeschooled. The decision came on the heels of numerous reports from school employees concerned about that boy's safety. And 12 months later, the boy's parents and brother are arrested for his death.
Ariel Harrison is live tonight from that vigil. Ariel, I'm sure a very emotional night. Are any family members there?
I am told Mom was here. She didn't speak, however, Gavin's uncle did. However, that has been a big question among community members. Aside from the boy's father, his stepmom, and brother, who are in jail, they want to know where this boy's family is. And despite the community's efforts to get authorities involved and step in, they want to know how he was failed this terribly. Lights are dimming the darkness tonight as a heartbroken community asks questions like why and how.
I just feel like we have failed him.
Jan Davis worked in the lunchroom at Gavin's school before his parents pulled him out last fall. She, among others at Canesville Elementary, knew he could be in trouble.
We would notice him sneak over to the garbage cans where the children empty their trays, and he would try to sneak food out of the garbage can.
During that school year, Davis and some of her colleagues started putting money on the boy's account to make sure he had food at school. But sadly, she says they were forced to stop after Gavin's stepmom realized it was happening.
It just broke your heart.
For the first time in her life, Davis reported abuse and neglect concerns about a student directly to DCFS. Her colleagues did too. They all got especially worried when he didn't return for school.
We were not allowed to follow up. It was an invasion of the family privacy for us to call the state and ask where it was standing and what they were doing for him.
Did you read through the arrest documents of his family members?
Yes, I did.
What?
I have been a mess. I think the system has failed him.
Heartbroken by the loss, while holding a candle tonight, she admits many of them feel a sense of guilt. She hopes we can do better.
Could have done so much more. I could have packed his lunch for school. I could have pushed the issue harder. I just feel like I could have done more.
Now, Davis also described Gavin as just a cute, polite, soft-spoken little boy. Beyond the reports, we've realized there wasn't much the workers at the school, educators, could really do other than maybe perhaps report it a little bit more than they did. The district did confirm to us just last week that multiple reports were filed directly to DCFS. Now, whether those claims or how they were investigated or investigated at all, we still don't have clear answers and are still working to get those. Mark, Jamie, educators fall into that realm of mandated reporters. And like we just mentioned, Weber Schools confirmed with us last week that multiple complaints were filed by employees and long before the boy died 2 weeks ago. Now, the district has warned its employees from speaking with media. However, one former and 2 current employees wanted to talk because they say they just can't stay silent about this.
He was your typical little kid. You had to tell him to sit down occasionally.
It's been several years since Jackie Allred drove the bus 12-year-old Gavin Peterson rode to school.
Was there any neglect at that point that you noticed?
Not that I noticed. I know the stepmother was very protective, wanted to make sure he sat where she thought he needed to be.
But news of his death hits too close to home. She lives just a door down from where Gavin lived and where his family members were arrested last week. Allred says the allegations keep her up at night.
Still haunts me.
You worked in Gavin's school.
Yes, I was a lunch lady.
Jan Davis, a former district employee, told me she is one of the workers who reported abuse concerns to DCFS. She says after a group of them tried to feed Gavin at school, his stepmom put a stop to it.
The next week he come to school and he had a chipped front tooth, and we were all afraid that we had caused that.
In addition to Davis and other lunch workers, she says Gavin's principal, the school nurse, and a teacher also filed complaints with the state. Bus drivers did as well.
I felt like something needed to be done.
Brindy Lipham helps on the buses in the district. She didn't know Gavin well, but planned the vigil for him last night. A task that broke her heart, knowing so little about the boy from his obituary.
One photo, they say they knew what he liked, Pokemon and Blue. It was a school picture. Where was he as a kid? Where was he playing? We don't really know he liked Pokemon because obviously he wasn't doing those things.
As frustration builds, so do the calls and demands for answers.
Did they check into it? What was their findings and why didn't they help him?
Ahead of court hearings next week surrounding the West Haven child abuse homicide case, we're getting some insight into how child welfare checks are actually handled.
Ariel Harrison live from DCFS tonight with answers there. Ariel.
Well, to be clear, we don't have information from DCFS or law enforcement regarding visits to 12-year-old Gavin Peterson's West Haven home. But we do know what authorities uncovered inside that home that led to the arrest of his dad, his stepmom, and his brother. Those arrest documents, though, from family members tell us photo, video, and cell phone evidence play a massive role in this case. Authorities suspect from the evidence gathered, the boy was in a prolonged pattern of abuse in his home before he died 2 weeks ago. Leading up to his withdrawal from public school last fall, we know faculty members in the Weber School District reported abuse and neglect concerns to the state. I spoke with a retired deputy chief of police unaffiliated with this case who talked about welfare checks and DCFS investigations.
Are they separate? They are separate investigations, absolutely. Doesn't mean that they don't work hand in hand. But if we have the call where law enforcement comes out first and they find something or they believe that they found something, then in those cases we are going to, look into it a little bit further.
When you make that call, does it guarantee there will be eyes on that child in some capacity?
They have to investigate enough that we can understand that children are safe.
Also, a former school lunch worker who tried to alert the state about that West Haven boy who appeared to be starving is now calling for changes to school meal programs across the state. She believes all students, not just some, should have access to free meals.
We begin with Ariel Harrison, who went to find out what that would take and if the idea is even doable. She's live in the State School Board of Education for us right now. Ariel?
Yeah, the State School Board of Education oversees the school meal programs across the state. That former worker I spoke with today said it was clear to her and other lunch workers at the time that 12-year-old Gavin Peterson was coming to school starving. And she felt then, strongly and more so even now, that free meals may have made all the difference for this young boy.
I think it would have helped so much.
Jan Davis started working at Gavin Peterson's elementary school during COVID, a time when school meals were free for all students.
You would see him digging through the garbage can for food. And that's when I first noticed him.
Davis says this didn't start happening until free meals went away and families were required to pay.
You can go online and you can apply for reduced school lunches or free school lunches.
But you have to apply.
You have to apply.
It just doesn't seem like that was in the cards for this kid.
No.
After conflict with the family following workers' attempts to feed the boy at school, last fall he was withdrawn for homeschool. Davis claims she and other colleagues were sick, questioning whether he was being fed at all.
Is there a part of you that wonders, had it just been in place already, that it wouldn't have been an issue at all?
Yes.
In an effort to learn more about the school meal programs, I reached out to the State Board of Ed. While their staff wasn't available to answer questions today, I went to a legislator passionate about the hunger issue.
From my experience, kids come to school hungry.
State Representative Dan Johnson is a former educator and sponsored legislation to provide breakfast in schools. He supports the idea of free meals.
What would it take to make school meals free for all kids in Utah?
School districts make that decision individually. It's not mandated currently.
Okay, so it's not something that comes from legislators?
No, but of course we fund money at the State Department of Education.
I asked Johnson if Utah has the capacity to cover the cost.
The legislature could take a look at that.
Something Davis says she's prepared to take up with lawmakers.
How many kids are out there that come to school hungry that we're not aware of? They deserve a free meal.
Now, while the State School Board of Ed couldn't talk with me today, they said they would. I do plan to sit down with them and ask about the reality or ability to provide free meals for K-12 students in Utah. Reporting live from the State School Board of Education, Ariel Harrison, KUTV 2 News.